Hello, Brian. Thanks for being with us on this and supporting this great event. It's really a big pleasure to have you here.
If only I could be there in person and we could have this event live with everybody in such a beautiful city and a beautiful country. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Next time, definitely we will have you here. All right. So there are just a few questions and a few really important topics working here in the region. We are talking to more than 500 clients, mainly in Southeastern Europe. And they're from different industry, big and small. And all of them currently are really pressured about the increasing costs in the supply chain. The raw material costs is increasing, the transport costs are increasing, salaries are increasing, inflation is getting higher and higher, and so on and so on. So more than ever, they're looking to increase the efficiency by automating the internal and the external process by different IT systems, ERP, CRM, supply chain management, and so on and so on. Competition is now in the arena how to make it, how to produce it more with less. To optimize the supply chains, outsource activities, and so on. There are plenty of salespeople preaching nowadays that digital transformation is equal to automation of processes. So implementation of a system is a must. And so is this true? What is a digital transformation actually? I really want to hear from the source and from your experience.
Well, these are really fascinating times. I mean, they're also difficult times, but they're incredibly fascinating because to your question around what is digital transformation, we're going to get to that. But let's start with something a little bit more human. It's really about mindset. It's about what do you see and what do you allow yourself to see? What do you make space for in your day versus what are you just trying to keep up with in your day? And the reason that I want to start here is that whether we're talking about digital transformation, whether we're talking about innovation, whether we're talking about wellness and well-being, it all has to start with the role you decide you're going to play and the time and space you're going to make in order to play this role. Because otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to create a next normal that looks a lot like the old normal. So this is where the definition of digital transformation comes in. If we see it as the old normal, we're going to look at automation, RPA, we're going to look at AI, all in the efficiencies of scale, taking yesterday's analog or traditional or legacy processes, making them faster, more scalable, smarter. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't see that as digital transformation. I see that as digitization. Digital transformation, I once defined it. I wrote some of the first research reports on the subject, and I still think that the last State of Digital Transformation report I wrote several years ago, the definition still stands. It's essentially this. It's the transformation of business and operational processes using digital as a means to do today what you couldn't do yesterday. And you need a balance of both. Digitization to improve everything that's working, everything that keeps you in business, helps reduce costs, helps free up time for people to do what people should be doing, which is being more creative, more engaging, more included and collaborative in processes that involve colleagues and customers. And we should also look at transformation much like we think about innovation. So I know it's a long answer, but I promise it'll set the tone for the rest of the conversation. Iteration is like digitization. It's just using technology to do the same things better, faster, et cetera. But transformation to me is like innovation, which is finding opportunities to use technology or mindsets or both to create net new value. Because the balance of these things are going to lead to disruption. And disruption is doing the new things that make the old things obsolete. All right. So if everybody's still following along, what that means is that there are going to be companies that are thinking about digital to create new value for customers, consumers, employees, ecosystems, supply chains. And there are going to be companies that are taking all of this new incredible technology to do the old things better. And you can do both, but you can't just do iteration, because certainly someone's going to come along and disrupt. And the minute we disrupt, then we're catching up all over again, and maybe not catching up at all. Maybe it just becomes too difficult to do so. So let's think about that and the role that we want to play in both this iteration and innovation world, so that we're thinking differently about what that new or next normal could be, what that future could be.
Yeah, so it's more like changing the business model in the digital environment now, instead of just automating process with applications.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, I'm not going to go on a 20-minute answer to that point, but if you think about it, we are in 2022. We've had a hard couple of years. This year's not any easier. When we think about the world and what it could be versus what it is, we are designing on models and processes that are decades old. And these were invented in an industrial era of design. And now we're in a digital first world. We just had some research published on the 10th of May called The State of the Connected Customer. And it shows for the first time, well, not maybe for the first time, but it's 60-40 in terms of customers being digital first. And by 2022, 2023, we see it actually continuing to go as people spend more and more time online. So what that means is we are officially ushering in a digital first world. So building industrial era experiences and models and processes for a digital first era is not creating new value. So we have to shift now business models, business processes, operational models, talent, skills, experiences for a digital first era. And that's a big shift. And that's really what your point is, why it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And it's another actually phenomenon now, what sees that companies actually are starting to competing in a different arena. It's not like competing that my product is better than your product. It's not like my product is cheaper than your product. It's more about that I deliver something more to your clients. It's like it's so popular called the customer experience. So the companies actually, what we envision here is that they are not like they are currently, I would say, like the majority, 90% in the region, they're focused on what they do, what they actually manufacture, or what kind of service they're doing, but they're not focused on the pleasure they deliver, they give to the client. So it's more about becoming a customer centric instead of product centric, and it's a huge trend. Actually, it started long ago, but it's still not in having this impact like it should be. So it's not to be a customer centric, but the product to be a customer centric instead of product centric. So my question is, how by digital transformation we can achieve this to become a customer centric enterprise?
That, I love what you just said. Really what we're saying is becoming a human-centered enterprise, because employee experience, customer experience, all of these are important, because the word experience is one of those words that I think is overused to the point where we don't take a moment to really appreciate what it means. What it means is it's an emotional reaction to any moment, how I work, how I shop, how I talk to someone. And so you're constantly thinking and feeling about how you think and feel in that moment. And what you remember is ultimately how you're going to communicate that story either to yourself or to someone else. Like, I just had the most amazing experience because of X, Y, and Z, or I had the most horrible experience because this technology didn't work. It was so frustrating. I couldn't click through. I'm on a mobile device, whatever it is. And so you're essentially designing for how someone's going to think and feel. This is why becoming a human-centric organization isn't an option, right? And so this is, to your point earlier, why digital transformation is human-centered, right? We're not doing these things because technology is the answer. Technology is the enabler for a better solution. So what is the problem you're trying to solve, and what are the opportunities that you're trying to create, and how can we use technology to bring these things to life? So to your point, in that State of Connected Customer research that we just published, we found that 88% of customers say that the experience a company provides is as important as products and services that you sell. And in a joke, the other 12% probably didn't understand the question. And what that really means is that people don't just want to transact, yet that's what we started to do in 2020 when we went to a work from home hybrid world trajectory. We just started digitizing stuff so that we could ensure business continuity. Nothing wrong with that. We had to do that. And I applaud everyone for the incredible work that they did, that they didn't even probably think was possible to do so quickly and at scale. So now here we are thinking about how do we compete differently as the world starts to open up? And the answer is experience. It's a competitive advantage that digitizing touch points, transactions, processes is not an experience. It is actually, if it works great, it's forgettable, which is counterintuitive to experience. You want it to be wonderful. So that means every touch point that exists needs to be reimagined for experiences, not transactions. That means every touch point that doesn't exist that can create experiences has to be developed and has to be imagined. And the challenge that we all face is that we're so caught up in our day-to-day worlds and the politics and all of the stress and the anxiety of this new world. Or I joke, I tried to be innovative once, but I got stuck in Zooms all day. The reality is that we have to remember we are not our customer, and we are not our employees. We are people making decisions about what's in the best interest for the things that we measure today of what defines yesterday's success in these new worlds. So we have to change all that. What it means to become a human-centric company is to allow for data, but also just good old-fashioned, talking to people or experiencing what people are experiencing. Said another way, empathy. To allow ourselves to take these insights to make decisions that allow us to have an out-of-body experience where we can become the people we're trying to deliver better experiences for, and ultimately see them for who they are and also who they're becoming.
Super. Human experience. Let me tell you about my human experience last month, and especially the last week. So my car is getting older and older, so I have to replace it. So I started doing the researches, Google, visiting, test drives, all this stuff about how you buy a new car. I'm really not a fan of any brand or whatever. And well, I selected a car and I really like the car. And I said, okay, I want this car, but I want it with this color and so on and so on. And the dealer told me that you will get it in 9 months. I said, what? 9 months? Can you believe it? 9 months. Well, it's obvious that the supply chains are not broken, but they're very, very slow. The demand is higher than the supply. The global world now is impacted, like the war in Ukraine is impacted by local events, and it's not like, I would say, customer-centric or human-centric anymore, human experience. And now, so our clients today, when we approach them, they really avoid talking about the experience. They said, look, there is a huge uncertainty and I cannot promise. And well, the good news is that all the dealers are telling the same story. So it's not like there is a competition that somebody has some way to deliver it faster. So is it all about human experience? How to apply the digital transformation here? How to increase the experience, and how to manage all these broken supply chains?
Thank you for sharing that experience with me. I had to buy a used car last year, and that that also was a very difficult experience because they were in short supply, and as a result, prices were up and things were crazy. The supply chain was disrupted because it wasn't designed not to be disrupted. It's just that good old mindset of business as usual. I worked with a company called Era Technology out of Silicon Valley, and they had, even before the pandemic, worked on, if you think about supply chain, a lot of really advanced, complicated decisions are made by people, and those people are rooting those decisions in decades of experience of, and it's not an exact science. And what they developed was an AI platform that took disparate silos of data so that you could analyze the outcomes of the decisions made over the past, however many years. And it's fascinating because once the system starts to understand the data, what happened with logistics, what happened with deliveries, what happened with the sustainability impact, for example, it could then make recommendations based on real-time numbers. These orders have to go here, et cetera, and it can start making recommendations. Then the better it gets at analyzing the results of its recommendations, it could actually start to make the decisions on its own, creating what they call a self-driving enterprise. So then you apply to that scenario planning, which is a common practice of, well, not a common practice, it's a very special practice of then starting to play out what happens in this scenario. So you create a digital twin, or you could create a digital twin. And for example, Kraft Heinz is doing this, where they're creating a digital twin of their supply chain so that they can stress test it in a variety of environments. You add to that Era technology, you bring in all your data inputs, and you can now plan ahead for all kinds of disruptions so that your experience of buying a new car is optimized, especially in a world where instant gratification is part of the value proposition. And that open and transparent communications is also part of that value proposition. So it really comes back to whether it's the supply chain, whether it's marketing, whether it's how you sell, how you serve or service. It's about experience design. What do I as a company want to promise as the experience that you should understand you're going to have with us, not just in one place, but throughout your journey with us? That's the definition of customer experience. It's the sum of all engagement a customer has with your company. So I don't think any company really has sat down and said, this is the experience you're going to have. They've certainly come up with branding and messaging, tagline and vision statements and mission statements, but not experience design. And if you think about Salesforce, we're in the relationship business, and we use technology to facilitate those relationships in every context: marketing, service, sales, et cetera, commerce. And relationship design is important, that every organization should understand that what are the relationships that we should have? What should you feel? What's the experience you should have? What do these relationships look like, and how are they valued? These are real human conversations to allow us then to use technology with a sense of intent and a sense of purpose. Whereas the last 50 or 60 years, we use technology to scale, get more efficient, in many ways, move further and further away from the customer, right? Just think of customer service, which is maybe an oxymoron. It's an opportunity to use technology to build better relationships, to build better experiences, and to be more human.
Thank you so much for being with us. And because it's a recording and there is no option for question and answers, I would ask everybody who has questions to you to send an email to me, and I'm going to forward the emails to you, so it all will be responded. Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yes, and one day I'll be back there live, but Orlin, I really appreciate you making this conversation feel electric, relevant, exciting, and hopeful. That's what we need, is hope, and to realize that you and I and every one of you who's watching this play a role in what the future could be. And this is really, honestly, our time.
Super. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.